What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Water Pod, man. We're back with another installment, episode 2, Dose. I'm here with my boy Joey, man. What can I say, man? This guy, me and him been knowing each other for, it's been 5 or 6 years now, I would say. Maybe even a little longer, but we met each other in the poetry scene, doing poetry together and open mics and, you know, real recognize real, as they say. And I recognized his talent, he recognized mine, so we got together. We started, you know, we've got pretty much a whole album we haven't dropped.
You hold it hostage.
Yeah. So without further ado, man, this is my guest for tonight, Mr. Enlightenment. What's up, man?
Yo, appreciate you having me on, man. The Water
absolutely.
Pod. Trying to get on the train early.
Yeah, man. You know, I like whenever I started it. Obviously, I had Dusty on, and that was a great episode. But I had to obviously go with my people that I stick with. That I know is good for a good conversation. Man, has a lot to say. So I definitely wanted to have you on, man. And I got some other people lined up that familiar faces. So that'll be fun, man. For those of y'all that don't know Joey, like I try to give a little introduction of him, but great dude, man. He's a teacher. He's a poet. You know what I mean? You see, be the light, and that's what he is, man. He's trying to be the light in this dim world. I think that's what a lot of us as poets and artists are trying to do. You know, we try to find the light in all this darkness, man. We try to find the word that can speak to somebody's heart when they're going through something tough, and it's not always that way. There's poetry that's very happy, but I think it's all rooted in pain. You know, it's all rooted in trying to get your feelings on a page, because you know that somebody out there's probably felt the same way. So that's what this dude's about, at least in my opinion. But we're gonna get to know him more. So cause honestly, there's a lot of stuff I don't really know about Joey, because we know. You know, we've had many conversations, but a lot of times we get together, we doing poetry. So, where'd you grow up?
Man, I grew up in the big city of Walterboro, man.
Walterboro, I love that. Yeah. You got any siblings?
Yeah, I got an older sister.
Yeah.
Named Vonda. So she kind of like, we 7 years apart, so it was more like the mom figure. So she's more like bossing me around. My mom's not around, so
so as we get moms.
Yeah. So as we getting older, I'm kind of on her level now. But it was like when mom wasn't there, she was telling me what to do. So I got my own opinion now. My opinion can stick a little bit now.
Right. I like that, man.
I sit at the big kids tables now.
So Walterboro, man, for people who don't know, where's that at? Where's that located?
So if you ever went to Disney World, you probably stopped and got gas in Walterboro. Man. That's kind of what I see. You're on the way to 95, so you didn't probably seen the sign. We kind of get some bad rep these days. You probably heard about it for some like crime going on, some murders. But when I was growing up, man, it was football. So I grew up playing football. Actually, shout out to the '97 Walterboro Bulldogs, only state champ, only state champ in school history. So you can go ahead and check that, Google that.
Don't at me.
Yeah, so you know.
That's dope though, man.
Country boy, man.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
On.
I was about to say, like, for those that don't know, you know, Walterboro to people from North Charleston, and like the Tri-County area, like Walterboro, Orangeburg, like those places are not, those are close in relation, but those are like considered country to the city folk, even though we ain't really city folk. Like there ain't a big city in South Carolina.
To me now, you know, Charleston area, like this big enough. You know, traffic for me.
Yeah, we don't need it getting no bigger.
But it's, you know what I'm saying, it's stuff to do. Like I'm going to Walterboro, like when I do go home, like I'm not hanging out too much. I see my people and I'm out. But as far as like the nightlife and stuff to do, Charleston big enough for me, but without being too big. So
right.
I don't need to go. Like I've been out of town, Atlanta, you know, even Vegas. Like I don't need that kind of like I'm in and out. Like give me a couple days, and I'm back home. Like,
yeah, Vegas is a little too big, but I do like Atlanta. Like I always said, if I moved, I would. I don't know. I love the vibe of Atlanta. I've never had a bad time in Atlanta. So maybe I haven't been there enough because I'm sure like I've been to Atlanta maybe 15, 20 times doing shows or just going to a Braves game or a
Oh
Falcons
yeah,
game or something like that. So I guess that's why I like Atlanta
it's
because
plenty
every
to
time
do.
I went there, but every time I went, I had a good time.
Yeah, yeah, no
And it's
problem with
not
it.
like whenever you live there and you
That's what I'm
like,
saying. Like it's probably somebody right now like can't wait to get out of Atlanta.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
like there's somebody in Charleston that can't wait to leave. Like
right.
wherever you grew up, you literally trying to leave. But yeah,
I
so it's a
think it's
lot going
weird
on.
that like cuz you mentioned Walterboro's kind of gotten a bad rap and there's some other ones that like more rural country areas that are like for whatever reason like I get maybe because they don't have a lot to do
That's
but
for real.
like
Yeah,
the gang thing is getting real popular and I've noticed
yeah,
that
yep.
like I don't know for whatever reason Charleston North Charleston's always had like a pretty prevalent gang presence. You know, whether it, I, you know, if you talk to somebody in California, they'd probably be like, yeah, it's all fake, da,
Yeah,
da,
we
da.
ain't really.
But it doesn't matter if something's real or fake. If somebody believes it's real and they gonna shoot
Yeah, shoot you
somebody,
over it.
then
Yeah,
that's pretty real to me. You
believe
know what I mean?
enough.
Like, it doesn't matter what you think about it. But I often wonder, like, why is these more country areas starting to get so gang prevalent? But I guess it is. They
It's
don't
just
have a lot to
always
do,
something.
and
Yeah, like it was when I grew up. It was more like neighborhood type stuff. Like I don't even call it like like neighborhoods, but like area. So within Carleton County, which is the county in Walterboro, like this, it's not a big city, but it's a lot of different areas. Like we go 4A school, so it's a lot of people that go to that school. So it'll be like this neighborhood or this area where you live would fight this area. They weren't shooting each other, just like fist fights, just talking trash. And I think it kind of elevated to, we're a gang now, putting labels on it. But it was always like, your area where you grew up, they don't like me. It's like we took it personal, and then you pass it down to your nephews or your nieces, and then everybody like growing up in that. My area, I kind of grew up of not much going on, so I had a couple cousins that live on the same dirt road as me. We didn't get into it. I was like sports, video games, music.
yeah.
That was my thing. So I kind of like I wasn't really like a big time popular person in high school. Like if you were in my class, you knew me. But other than that, like crazy thing is like going back, social media kind of connects everybody. So people see me now like the social guy, the going out guy. They be like, "That's you. That was you
Yeah,
back
that's
then."
you.
Like you were. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, we was in the same class." They probably
Mm.
don't remember me. I was doing my work, just chilling. So now it's like it's almost like 180 for me. But
So like you basically just immerse yourself into like almost finding ways to escape the day to day like watching like you said watching sports listening to music like because I know for me like I like being from a small town I always just liked listening to like rappers from New York or California, and
yeah,
you could just kind of get out of this small town and feel what you felt like the big city, or even sports. You watching the Knicks play in the Garden against Reggie Miller, or like what we grew up on with Jordan
yeah.
playing the Pacers or something like that, and you're just like you could feel like you're from a big city, so that's what like one way you would escape, and I'm assuming it was like poetry, kind of that deal for you was like something that you could because I don't did you have like things that led you into poetry that were like heartbreaking or was just poetry like an outlet for you? It wasn't.
So I can't say that I wrote poetry a lot growing up. I I was more like write raps. Like I was big and like you said, New York rap, like the Source magazine, that was my
Yeah.
go to. Like I'm reading that every month. Like I know which I'm going to see which tape I need to get.
Right.
So if you get the 3 mics, the 3.5, I was like, all right, this is good. I'm gonna go cop it. So I was writing raps, and if the teacher gave you opportunity to write something in a rap form, I did that. Poetry, I didn't really like, tap into like what would be considered like traditional poetry until I went to college, and I took creative writing poetry class. So as a part of that class, we had to put together a portfolio, like 25 poems. So I did that. Me and the professor kind of bumped heads because he was kind of like, you're teaching poetry, but he was a poet as well. So he's kind of like, my writing didn't fit how he wrote. It was like he was kind of like more of a conventional, like I don't know about line breaks. You know, like where does the line break? I don't know how to formally write a poem. I never been formally taught that, but you know, it's like I needed to get out of school. I needed a couple of electives, and I was like, creative writing poetry, I can do that.
Yeah,
because poems short. And I'm like, opposed to writing like term papers and
you like I know how to rap. I can rap.
Yeah, I can write a poem. You know what I mean? Plus, I don't have to like write pages and pages. The worst thing you can do for me is give me a paper to write. I hate papers like with the passion. I'm short-winded on top of that. So if you give me like a word count, I gotta get like 1,500 words. I'm like, I'm stretching it out, man.
Yeah, that makes it tough. Well, like poetry to me too. Like I'm kind of like you in that sense because I'm not traditionally trained or anything like that. But I read a lot of poetry growing up. I'm a little different in the sense of like I wrote a lot of poetry growing up, and that kind of led me into, well, I don't want to say led me into hip hop because rapping and all that, like that was just like if you grew up in the 90s, you were if you weren't freestyling, then you were trying to make the beats for the people that was freestyling, or you know what I mean? Like everybody had a job. Like we got to figure out, we putting on beats, we freestyling. Like you might be the guy that's like recording it and like making tapes and handing them out to people, but if you had a group of friends, it was like, okay, these dudes rap, I make beats, this dude does this, so it was just like, but it was just all hip hop. But poetry helped me a lot when I did start rapping because I wrote a lot of poetry. I don't want to say like a ton of poetry, but I just wrote, and it was more rapping really, but I never had that traditional training. So like even to this day, like traditionalists will like you said, like it's got to have line breaks or this stanza or this many or that many, or like, and the new thing for whatever reason, a lot of people don't like poetry that rhymes. And to me, like, obviously I'm not a professor, but if a poem don't rhyme, it's not a poem to me.
Okay.
And I'm wrong because I know that's not true because of what colleges and people who've studied poetry for whatever they say. But to me, like, it has to rhyme. So like it's hard to like connect with people who think it doesn't have to rhyme. You know what I mean? And I'm like, because I'll read a poem that doesn't rhyme and I'm like, man, I could have made that so fire because this could have used this word with rhyming or whatever. But I do agree with you. Like I feel like you sometimes where I think people get caught up too much in like it sounding a certain way. And I felt like that at a lot of poetry shows that I would go to because my rhymes are so unconventional, you know, compared to the standard, like, you know, spoken word. Like this wall is painted white, and that's why I'm gonna talk to you all night. You know, like it's like very like that's not the right cadence, but you know what I'm saying. Like it's like you can listen to 10 poets that got the same cadence. So I felt like I always was like kind of on the outs with it because mine is very just abstract, I guess, compared to most poetry. So it like turns into the rapping more, but so like rapping got you into poetry, but what do you have a purpose while you write? Like, do you write from a place of like pain, or do you just write vicariously? Because I know I do that a lot where like my wife will even be like, man, why you write that poem? You sound like it's sad. Like our marriage is fine. I'm like, well, it ain't us. It's like I was talking to this dude at the Lowe's the other day, and he mentioned how he was having problems with his wife, and I wrote a poem about it. You know, do you do that? Like you live vicariously?
I have done that. Like, so after I put together that portfolio in college, and then I kind of left college, kind of stopped writing. Then, like you said, I got into some relationship issues, and then I just started like writing about relationships in general, and that kind of like got me posting it back when MySpace, you could put a note out there. Facebook had a little place where you could post stuff, and then just getting feedback because I would be creative or like write something personal, and then you said like you write it is so relatable, like they think it's you.
Mm.
So like, I wrote something one time, people were like, nah, like, that wasn't true. I just kind of felt it, and just being creative and just absorbing it from like social media or talking to people or just stuff that's going on. So I kind of like joke about it. Like I can give you so much relationship advice, but I don't know how to personally do it right.
Yeah.
So I can give you some advice, like I can know what to do, but me, I don't necessarily do it. But I can write. It's like I can talk about it, but don't. It's almost like a relationship counselor that gets a divorce or something like that. So I can tell you, I know what to do. I can tell you, but I might not also take
Yeah,
the
where it's
best.
like what they always say about coaches, those who can't do, teach or whatever, coach.
Yeah.
Like the guys who couldn't play are the ones who coach or whatever. But yeah, but it's like uh, I think from a poet standpoint, it's like sometimes people don't like you might have like you said you could write about it and you got good advice and you might not follow it, but there's also the flip side where like when you're dealing with somebody who can't understand it, then it's like you're kind of like just shouting out into the abyss. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, I could give you the advice and like you I don't know, man. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like I could give you advice, but if you're not really capable of accepting it, then
Yeah.
then like yeah, I might have the words, but words are vacant without ears to hear
For
them.
sure.
You know
Or
what
you
I
might
mean?
got that friend you give them the same advice to every few
Yeah, a
months, and
hundred
they don't do
times.
it. Yeah. All right. Well, make your own choice at that point. So.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times too, poets get like uh like we're responsible for people want to hold you accountable and think that like you're supposed to write about a certain thing or like if you, and I think a lot of poets fall into it a lot of times where musicians as well where like there's certain topics that they have to write about or they have to like it could be a trending topic and then like you go to
Yeah.
a poetry show and it's like everybody's talking about this certain specific topic and they're all
Yeah.
kind of saying I don't know, it's like music gets like that sometimes too where it almost gets watered down because it's like you could turn on the radio and listen to 6 songs and they're all kind of talking about the same thing and all nobody like to me poetry and like art should be like not abstract, like you shouldn't just say something just to be different, but you should always be trying to bring a different perspective, you know what I mean? And like that's at least that's how I am when I write is like, and I'm sure you are too, I guess. Do you when you write, are you trying to almost be a contrarian, like not in a malicious way, but just trying to find a new viewpoint to a topic, or are you just like I don't know how to really put it. Like when you write, do you just want to show somebody a different aspect of a certain thing that you're talking about? Is that kind of how you go at
It's
a
like
poem?
it's only so much you can talk about. Like as a
Yeah.
thinking about these poets or rappers, like how many different things can you talk about? But I feel like the challenges is saying something differently. Like you
Yeah.
said something like you stand out when you go to an open mic. I want to be that person that like we talking about love, cool. I want to go from a different angle. Or the big thing at poetry spots, which I don't particularly that's not my wheelhouse or whatever. But even I tap dancing erotic. Like I don't do erotic a lot, but let me tackle erotic differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Like let my angle on erotic poetry be different than yours. So I want to kind of still like, dang, I remember that dude. his poem was a little different. So I am not trying to like go against the grain on purpose, but I do want to write it a little differently. Like I feel like that's the thing I love about poetry is like you go to an open mic. There's so many different styles. Like there's no wrong way to do it. That's why I love poetry. Really, there's no one way to do it. Like there is a way to do it. Like if you want to get technical, but you can't write poetry wrong. That's That's what I love about it.
Oh, I
You
like
can't
that.
do it
I
wrong.
like that. That's a bar.
I'm saying you can't do it wrong. There's no
You
way.
can't write
And
poetry
people,
wrong.
people always ask me like, how I go. People want, oh, you write poetry. Like I want you to read one of mine, or I want you to hear some of mine. I'm never gonna like say your poem's good or bad. Like I'm gonna try to find that something that kind of like caught my attention because people like, is it a good poem? Is it a bad poem? Like it's you. Like I'm not gonna here to like criticize your poetry. Like it was the hard part for me too when I started putting myself out there. Like, hey man, what do you think about that? And somebody didn't like it. Like that was like a hard thing to like accept. Like you didn't like this. Like man, it's fire. You listen to that song. Like oh man, I'm listening to my own track. Like I'm nodding. You play it for a homeboy. Like that ain't it. I was like man, come on. Like you kidding me? Like that's fire. Like so. There's like so many different layers and how to do it. I follow a lot of social media poets and back when the Def Poetry Jam and it was just so many different people, so many styles. I love it. Like that's my thing about poetry.
That is real dope and I understand what you're saying about whatever you write is you. So like I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to try to like I do with just anybody. If I meet you, like I'm trying to figure out who you are, and I'm trying to pick out your good traits. So I'm a judge. If you show me one of your poems, I know how hard it is. Like poetry's so much different than anything else, like playing basketball or music or anything like that. Like you're letting somebody into your mind, your thoughts, like your personal space. Like you went and sat, you not, almost 100% of the time, you went and sat down by yourself and thought about this. You know what I mean? And you wrote those words. So like you're being very vulnerable, and for it is I never try to like criticize somebody like you said when they show me their deepest thoughts and how they put together something. Like I'm gonna look through. If you ask me to critique it, like if you're asking me like what could I do better, maybe I'll help you with delivery, or you might could have said this differently. Yeah, I will help you that way if you ask me. But for the most part, I'm gonna try to find the parts that spoke to me because there's always something in there if you give it a chance and you don't get hung up on the appearance of the person or the delivery of the message and just like really just get down to the bare bones of it. You know what I'm saying? So what got you into teaching? Because I know we've been talking about poetry a lot, but you're also a teacher. So what inspired you to do that?
I'm not one of these like a lot of my coworkers like they got a story about how they was like teaching their stuffed animals or having a classroom.
It's like my daughter right now. Yeah. She's like a veterinarian. She
I was like
works on
teaching was not on my radar at all.
Okay. I like that.
You know what I'm saying? I just fell off into it. So I majored in football for a couple years. I played college football too. So I went to play college football, D2 Presbyterian College. So shout out to anybody that ever heard of Presbyterian College. So I went up there playing football. After like 2 years, I thought I was going to be a computer science major. For whatever reason, I thought computers was the big thing. Like, what's a man on Kings of Comedy? When the dude went to the bathroom, Steve Harvey's like, what you do? I go to computer school. Like, that was a big thing. Like, I'm computer science. Like, everybody was in technology in this early stage or whatever. I was like, I threw that out there because they asked you what you go major in. And I was like, all right, I'm undecided for now.
Computer science.
Computer science. That's what I want to do. A couple other homeboys was doing something similar. So I grew up, my dad working landscaping. So we out there cutting grass every summer, weekends, pretty much middle school, high school, even some summers when I was in college, cutting grass. So my dad, he worked for some educators and just different walks of life. And he was like, he came from the blue collar. I've been working hard all my life. You know, I'm breaking, you know, I'm breaking my back at work.
Yeah.
Why don't you think about teaching? Because I know I'm working for this teacher. They're about to retire. They got that 401k. So he coming to me like, why don't you try this? Because you don't want to do the back-breaking work that I do.
Right.
You want to do something else you can retire from, good benefit stuff. So he came at me from that angle. So I was like, cool. I took an introduction to education class, and my grades weren't that good at the beginning of my college career. The irony is, like, I'm a teacher, but I wasn't really the best student in college. But when I took the introduction to education class, and then I started like progressing through it, and my grades got better because it was such a flexible field. They said, here's your assignment. Make up a lesson plan for this. Like, literally, as long as I touch on the standard, it was no one way to do it. So it like tapped into the creativity. I was doing well in it. And then as far as availability, I was like, a lot of people, when I graduated around 2004, 2005, like, it was a lot of people that majored in something that didn't find a job at all.
Right, right.
So, you know, black male, the type of work, you started selling me on it. I get summers off too. Good schedule. The day go by fast for real. Like, it's really, like, some people hate like 9 to 5. I'm at my desk teaching. The day goes by quick because I'm always dealing with some issues. Like, day goes by fast because it's never the same thing.
Always something going on.
It's always something going on. So that's what really kind of like got me thinking about it. And when I went to you know, a teacher fair, so when you finish, you know, you start going to a interviews with different school districts. Like, I went, and it's like a big auditorium, whatever. These different school districts got their table. Come talk to us, whatever. We'll let you interview. I interviewed like 3 or 4 districts. Like, everybody was like literally like set up some interviews. So it was that quick. So next thing you know, and then I thought about the coaching aspect too.
Yeah.
You know, everybody else, all your coaches in high school, football coach, basketball coach, they were a teacher. They were like, what?
Yeah.
Driver's ed, social studies.
Yeah, I think some schools require it, right?
Yeah, like, especially then.
Yeah.
Now, not so much. They can go around it, but you literally had to be a teacher or work some type of education.
That's what I thought.
To be a coach.
When I was in high school,
yeah, like that's how to be. So I never really became a coach. I didn't get that coaching bug like that. But that was kind of my thought. Like, all right, I'm gonna teach. I'm a coach. And then, like, just kind of like fell off into it. Started doing pretty good at it. 18 years later, man.
Right. It's, 18 years later, bro. Well, I was gonna say it's interesting that you fell into it, but I guess what I would ask you next is, so how has it changed you? Like, cause it sounds like you didn't really. You had an interest in coaching, it sounds like, because you've always been interested in sports, but it doesn't really sound like you were planning on teaching. You said that. And obviously you probably weren't really planning on impacting kids' lives or them impacting yours in the way it has over 18 years. So, like, how has that been? Has that made you fall in love more with teaching, being able to you know, help kids and challenge them to be creative and figure out behavioral issues, things like that, or kids that showed you love or you changed their lives in some way?
So it's been a love-hate relationship for sure. Like, I know you're hearing about the teacher issues and like high turnover rate and stuff. Luckily for me, the first job I had was good enough. It didn't ruin it. You know, like, if I had a bad experience my first couple years, I probably would have got burnt out.
Like, what was the bad one? Like year 4 or something? Yeah. I
was gonna say, actually,
like, my 4th year was my first year.
Yeah, it could have been. It was just a learning experience, and like, I had people around me, like, they wanted to see me do well. I had a mentor teacher that looked out for me. It was almost like my school mom. Like, she's retired, and we still keep up. Like, they wanted me to do well because you don't see a lot of men in general. You don't see a lot of African American men. So it was like they wanted me to do well. They didn't want me to leave. And I just kind of figured it out. Like, it was rough. I had my moments, for sure. I have moments. Like, I'm second thoughts, and, dealing with, like, the art of teaching I love. But it's like so many, like,
Variables.
politics and,
Yeah.
Trying to make everybody happy. Like, I think it's almost like customer service. Trying to make everybody happy. Like, we say Chick-fil-A right now, but how can I help you today?
Yeah.
So that was the thing. But like you said,
well, I was asking about like the kids.
Yeah.
I know we
so,
keep derailing, but
have
they impacted you in a positive way? You feel like?
Yeah, I feel like it was mutual, man. Because
right.
I see a little bit of me in some kids, and I see the kids that's like, oh man, this kid right here is gonna be on point. Like, that might be the mayor, or they're gonna be doing some Fortune 500. Like, you can tell.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna write any kid off, but you can tell who's gonna be on point when they become an adult.
Right.
You can change it around, but if you're like a fourth, fifth grader and you're like knocking out grades good, always asking what you can do more, always doing what you're supposed to do, like, you build those habits. And if you got them that early, I feel like you only can progress
as
from
long
there.
as long as somebody keeps cultivating that and you don't get distracted and go off the rails, then you'll be good.
For sure. And then luckily, like, some people say they can't stay in one spot for too long. I've been at the same school my whole career. So I get the luxury of, oh, you taught my sister, oh, you taught my brother, you taught my neighbor. This was like, so I'm getting that gratification years later.
Right.
Where it's like, we bump heads every day, but you're one of my favorite teachers. It's almost like, at the time, I'm probably not going to be your favorite teacher during the school year.
Right.
But 2 years, 3 years down the road, like maybe 10 years, you'd be like, all right, well, I get it. He wasn't that bad because he wanted the best for me. He didn't want me to slack off. Like, I don't expect you to make A's, but I'm all about effort. Like, I'm pushing effort. I want you to be on point. We were talking about accountability. So that's the best thing. I love getting a email. Like, now I'm getting emails back. Or I would get a note. And when you come back to the school, like, as a high schooler, because we used to have a little, the high school football players would come back, and cheerleaders come back too, and they would do like a pep rally. And I'd be like, yo, I saw it, you know what I'm saying? I remember you, you remember me.
Right.
I'm still at the same school. It's like, yeah, so that's what I'm loving, is coming back. It's like, you helped me out, and now I'm showing that appreciation. Even though I got on your nerves, you might have got on mine, but now that you understood, like, what I was trying to do, like, what I was looking out for you. So, stories, I got this kid that, he's like about to be a junior, I think. Probably one of the top juniors in the state, if not country. Like, that dude's going to the league. Like, I know he's going to be getting me some tickets to some major league. Like, that dude's on point. So, his dad was in the military, and his dad deployed. So, I taught him in 4th grade and 5th grade. So, his mom, she requested that I have him in 5th grade because I taught him in 4th grade because his dad was deployed. So, I was going to be that male figure in his life when his dad was gone.
Right.
So she, like, I went to a baseball game of his last year, and like, she was just like, oh, we appreciate you, what you did for us. Like, I was kind of like the male figure when his dad was gone for that year.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of story I like.
So you say yes, that kids have impacted you as well as you've impacted them.
Yeah, I get that.
Because that's a huge responsibility, and like, you know, that's dope that we have men like you. I'm appreciative that I always wanted to be a teacher, but you know, the problem with me was I didn't go to college, and I didn't have people, even though I was like straight A student until I dropped out my senior year, and I only needed a few credits, you know, but I just didn't go back. I was tired of it, you know, and I didn't have nobody push me, and like, bro, I literally didn't get a B I don't think my whole school career.
You probably better than me. 'Cause
And
that's
I
like,
was in
dog,
all
I
advanced
had
classes and
senioritis, man.
yeah, and that's not bragging, but it's just like it's actually I'm trying to explain how stupid I was. That maybe if I had like because I had a couple of female teachers in high school that pulled me to the side and were like, "Yo, you need to quit hanging out with the people you're hanging out with.
Yeah,
Like, you could go to college on a academic scholarship. Like, do you know what that means?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't care. I'm going party and
yep.
you know what I mean. And maybe." Maybe not. I mean, I'm not trying to go back in time. I got a beautiful family. You know, I got kids, and you know, I'm good. I'm blessed, but that's not to say that the road couldn't have been easier or even better if I had like that positive male in the time when I needed it. You know, I've had a lot of positive male role models throughout my life, but there was like pivotal moments where I made some grown man decisions when I probably should have had like good counsel, and I didn't at the time. So
Yeah, I think sports kept me in the game, right? Because you had to have good grades to play. So even in college, football, they kind of did it right. They knew what they were doing. Like, you can't go out. You got curfew leading up to the game. You gotta, cause we're a small school, so they literally taking roll.
right,
It's like we got a school probably like when I was there, 1,200 people. So I know the professor. Professor knows my name. Like literally, it's at the most maybe 50 people in a class. So it's not like the auditorium at Carolina or Clemson where they don't know you were there or not unless you had to turn an assignment. So we couldn't miss more than 2 classes, or we had to run for it. You had to have a certain GPA. So that kind of kept the motivation going, even when I didn't. Like, looking back, my study habits were terrible. Like, I chose sleep over studying. They be like overnight. I'm like all
yeah,
nighters. I had never did an all nighter. I was going to bed, man. If I
right.
didn't know it, I'm going to sleep. So that football kept me motivated, and I appreciate it. And we talk about to this day the responsibilities and just knowing I got to do stuff and multitasking. I owe it to football. Like, people go to military for that kind of discipline. I play football for that discipline.
Right,
So,
right, right.
I didn't have to go fight no wars or nothing, but I had my own accountability system and
Yeah, yeah. Well,
doing
I
what I need to do.
mean, war is like I don't know. I guess because I'm a poet, like war is relative to me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like you down in the trenches with your platoon
Yeah.
playing football, and like not that like the stakes are as high or you're not. You know, most there's a 99% chance you're gonna live through it, maybe even higher, but still the same principles
Yeah,
apply.
you got
You
that
know, like
bond. You looking up. It's like you got your group and you got to hold your person down, and it's almost like you got that blind side of the quarterback, so they
right,
depending on you. I
right.
got your six and all the military terms or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
that
then you
was
gotta
it.
be responsible, like you said. Like you gotta show up and train because we are gonna be in the trenches. You know, if we're comparing it to similar to going to war, it's like when you go to war, it's like we training and you might hate it, it might suck, and the person
Oh yeah,
training you might be
yes.
mean, like the coach might be cursing at you or getting down on you or whatever, or disciplining you because you're late or you're not pulling your end of the bargain in training in practice, and you man, it's just practice. Like what's it?
Iverson.
But like you know, when we get into the war, when we get into the game, and I think that goes with life too. It's like you being a teacher or if you're a parent, it's like kind of the same thing. Like you gotta be hard. The training's hard so
Yes.
that the war can be easier.
Yeah, I always say the preparation for the test, the practice should be harder than the test. So I
Right.
don't want to like, hey man, you didn't even teach us this. Like I hear
Yeah,
that
yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
Like we didn't do this in class. Like yeah, we did.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'd rather the practice be harder. Like So when you take the test, you're like, oh, boom, I knew this. We did this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you harder work during class. So I'm gonna give the comparison. When we practicing, I teach reading, for example. I'm not giving multiple choice during the week. Like we doing short answer questions. We doing discussing questions. So when you got that multiple choice on test day, it'll be easier. So we're gonna water it. You know, the test is not gonna be as hard. Everybody, any athlete will tell you, practice is always harder than the game.
But yeah, that's what I think we're getting at here is just like if you train, if the training is hard, then the war will be easier. If the training is easier, then the war is gonna be hard. And like if the practice or the homework or the classwork is hard, then the test should be easy.
For sure.
If you get through what I'm teaching you now and it's hard, then the test gonna be easy. Whether you make it easy or not. You know what I mean? Like it should be on you to realize like the harder you train and the harder you study, the easier when it comes time to perform it will be. Just like with sports, just like with life, just like with tests or schooling or anything like that. You know, like it's like I'm a musician. I perform. So like the more we rehearse, when we get on stage, like we having fun. Man.
Yeah.
Like ain't nobody really like worried that they're gonna forget their words or not know how to play something or we're not gonna be in unison or sync. Like there's always and I think there's always gonna be like things that happen that you can't control. You know what I mean? Like for on the music side, like a mic goes out or something like that, and you know you gotta adapt on the fly. But that's how life is. But if you're well prepared and well trained, then the hard part's already done. Like you're saying, like
sure.
like you've already done the hard part. So, man, you got any shows coming up? You know,
hey, but let me get that before we get the people chiming in the comments.
Yeah,
the water par respects the veterans. We not trying to downplay war at all.
Oh no. Yeah,
I know
thank you for the disclaimer.
People get misconstrued. We not trying. You compare something to war. Like, we got love for the veterans.
No,
appreciate your service.
Disclaimer, people. We're poets. We're just trying to give entendres. We're just trying to, whatever. But hey, salute to the service. We respect the veterans 100%. Playing football is not like war, and taking a test at school is not like war.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We would never say
what I'm saying? Throwing that out there. But, speaking of that, I am in the works of another show. I'm looking at April. So, it happens to be Poetry Month. So, my next show is going to be in April. If you're not busy, you know how we do. I'm going to try to get the water boy to come through.
I'll come through. I know I got only one thing coming up in April, but we'll figure it out, man. Hopefully we can. Hopefully it'll all work out because I love coming to your shows, man. They're always a good vibe. It's always diverse, which I really like, and it's always just love, and there's always dope talent, and you always pick such great venues, and maybe that's why it's so diverse because the venues are always so like. I don't even know, man, how to put it. Like every time I
get lucky, man.
Maybe I don't know if it's luck or it's just like you're a very, eclectic person that I feel like a lot of people can engage with and talk to. So I don't know. You don't put yourself in a box. So then like it's always such an open environment to me when I come to one of your shows. You know what I mean? Like
I do a little bit of research, man. Like. I got the recipe right now. I'm working on it, man. So
I like
so
that.
far so good. We've been growing and each time getting good feedback. So
that's what's up, man.
The light show coming soon. Well, also we got a little. I got a book project I'm about to finish up too. So we about to drop it on them. It's called Flicker Poetry.
I like that.
A little light bulb, all light all day. So
you need to get that little Wayne sound.
Yeah, gotta have that.
Flick the lighter.
Sure. So, just kind of bouncing off that, like, I was more of a social media poet than anything. I finally started, like, doing more, getting out there and doing open mics. But for a long time, I was just like tweeting stuff. Like Twitter is kind of like where my poetry style kind of. I'm not gonna say I got my style when I do on social media, and I got my style in public.
Mm-hmm.
So when Twitter was a thing, you had to have a certain amount of characters. So I can't put a whole poem on Twitter. Plus, it's like quick. So I started with doing haikus, but then I was like, haikus kind of like I'm not the best. It's like it just wasn't always fitting what I wanted to do. So I just kind of just doing my research and interacting with people. It's called micro poetry. Like there's a whole genre called micro poetry. So I was just write 3 or 4 lines and just trying to like make it sound good, and I would tweet it. And I had a whole notebook of stuff, and I was like just sitting on my couch, like after going out, coming home, writing some short poems and tweeting them, and then I started building the following. It's like I got a document just full of short poems, and then I reached out to, and just another thing like following people on Instagram, and then it developed to Instagram when you put the poem with the sketch or a picture. So I got some art friends, I reached out to some art teachers that I worked with over the years. They gave me some sketches. I was like, hey, I got a poem about this. Can you sketch me something? So I got short poetry with the artwork equals flicker poetry.
Oh, that's dope. I need to. We'll talk after the pod, but I need to get. I want to do that, man. I've always wanted to publish. You know what I mean? Like, put some poetry into a book and illustrate it.
Now, man. Yeah.
Like, I would love to do that, man. So that's real cool. You doing that, and I know it's gonna be dope. I definitely want a copy. You know, I always like your merch. You know, Thomas Edison is my homeboy.
That's where it started, man.
Well, I think like you said, like it makes sense now that you talk about, you know, like Twitter and the way that you had kind of started putting your micro poetry together, because a lot of the poems that you do is what I love about it is like there's definitely a continuous theme, but you like you hit them with like if you got like a 16 bar poem, it's like you hitting them with like eight little stanzas, you know what I mean? Like little mini poems. It's like you string together mini poems, and then they all weave this grand tapestry of whatever the theme was. But you hit them with a few lines, and then you switch it. Like you can, if for instance, if like the concept is like a breakup, it's like you'll give them like a few lines about basketball, but somehow it's tied in with a double entendre or a triple entendre of breaking up with basketball, or you know, like then you might be talking about playing pool and like the way the balls break up. And like so like you'll string together like different themes, but it's all one theme, and I really like that. And I it makes sense to me that you have like mini poems, but it's crazy how you can like write a bunch of mini poems that turn into one big theme. You know what I mean? I like that because when I write, it's kind of like I start writing and I don't stop till I'm done. And I've always had trouble with like even like a lot of dudes that I rap with, or my homeboys that rap, like they write like 4 bars, they get that really good, and then they write another 4 bars, and then they can kind of interchange them. I can't do that, you know. Like mine's like it's like a start and end. You know what I mean? And I feel like you're kind of like that, where you could interchange some of your stuff if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Because it's like it flows no matter which way you say them, in front of or behind each other, because you switch through the topics, and that's.
I mean, sometimes I will take credit for doing it like that, but sometimes it just happens. Like
I think it's just the way you write.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like something you do purposely. I think it's natural. Like everybody has like a natural way they write, and I think like the way you write, I've always been intrigued by. I've always like appreciated it, because like I said, like if we got a topic about love, you're gonna be like, Okay, love and basketball. Okay,
Yeah.
love and music. Okay, love and your children. And then like you write like 3 or 4 mini poems about love with your children, love with basketball, love, and then you find a way to like string them together, and it just comes out so perfect and dope. So I'm like, dang man, I really like that.
Hey
So,
man, I
but that's what it's
appreciate
about,
that.
man. That's what I think. Like iron sharpens iron. So that's why I wanted to have you on the pod, man. You know, I feel like we rambled a lot, but in a good way.
Yeah,
It's a
man.
podcast, you know what I'm saying?
We
So we like,
flowing. It's no, you
yeah, it's
know.
just been flowing like good, and I hope that like I told Dusty he was on here, and like I've told people before, like my idea for the podcast is growth, you know. So I I and not just growth, but I also want like your fans to get to know you. And so like I felt like I got to know you, a lot about you on this podcast, and I hope that the people that listen to your poetry or follow you on Twitter or follow you on Instagram or anything like that, I hope they kind of got an insight into you, because I feel like a lot of times in this day and age, that's what people want to see. Like if they follow your art, like people love you for your art. That's truth. But I'm hoping with like this podcast that it'll bring people to your art because of who you are. Because I feel like us as artists, a lot of people follow us because of our art, which is good. That's what we truly want as artists. But with the way that social media is set up now, the way to get new people in is through who you are. People want to know who you are. They want to know your story. It's all about stories and
Yeah, yeah.
like how'd you become a teacher? How'd you become a poet? Like then they're like, "Oh man, like I feel like that too. I'm going to go check out his art." And then they fall in love with your art. Because I think sometimes our art comes across and it doesn't always show who we really are. Because like we said earlier, you might be writing a poem about divorce and you're never been divorced.
Right.
So then they're like, "Oh, I don't like how this person talked about divorce," or "Oh man, it's just another divorce poem," or whatever the case may be. The art wasn't, that piece of art wasn't for them. But then they listen to you explain the art or explain who you are, and they fall in love with that, and then it leads them to the art. So that's kind of like what I'm hoping that this podcast can bring. The water pod, I'm hoping that it can bring people into who the artist is and lead them into that artist's art. But I also am not just going to be with artists too. So like I said, like it's about growth. So I'm trying to bring people on that entrepreneurs, people who own stores or studios or not musicians, the whole gamut. Like I want to have a lot of people on. I don't care if a school counselor comes on, like and talks, or a psychiatrist. Like I would like to have something like that, or people who deal with addiction, or just the list goes on and on and on. What I like to ask my guests, sticking to the growth topic, what what is what is something that you would tell somebody that you could, all right, we'll give you an A or B. You can either pick to come from the teacher perspective or the poet perspective. What's something that you would tell an aspiring teacher or poet, the do's and don'ts? Like what's something, we'll start with the don't. Like what's something that they shouldn't do? Because we want to help them grow.
I get too like they kind of box teachers in too much. That's kind of what made me want to be a teacher is like the creativity. Like there's no one way. Like you might have one teacher that let's say we're teaching about mammals or we're teaching about the water cycle, speaking of water part. There's no, as long as I get my students to know the water cycle, I can have them rap about the water cycle. You can draw the water cycle. We
Mm.
can do this. Like there's no one way. That they don't say you got to do it this way. But I think a lot of people get boxed in. Is like they want teachers to make it easier for people that observe the teachers. They want us all teaching the same thing at the same time. When it used to be, when I first got into it, here's the standards. Make sure you teach them all by the end of the year. So I didn't have to do what the teacher across the hall was doing. Now they want me and the teacher across the hallway to be doing the same thing at the same time. Well, I feel like that's kind of stifling you. Like,
Right.
I want to teach. you might want to teach. I want to teach this novel because I love this novel, and you want to do it this because you love that. So I think teachers should be still individuals. So when I think a lot of new teachers come and then they get with that mentor, you know how it goes. When you're with your mentor, you try to take on their characteristics. Don't do what the other teacher does. You take some of the like what they do well. You can kind of like a little bit of this. Like you hear about let's say a basketball player. I took some of Jordan's game. I took some of Kobe's
Right,
game.
right,
I took
right.
some of this, some of that. Like I don't want to be you. Like I think a lot of people end up like, oh, you're a good teacher. I want to be like you. I want to do it like you.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it like the other person. As long as you're like checking those boxes, doing what you're supposed to be doing, like you don't have to. It's almost like this when coaches. Everybody want to be Belichick. Everybody can't be Belichick. Or everybody want to be the new coach. Like everybody want to. Boom, Lamar Jackson came through. Now you want a Lamar Jackson. You don't have to be the same as somebody else.
Right.
There's enough uh, for everybody to be their own person. So don't try to like. And it goes back to the individual, like art too. Like don't try to. Boom, I studied Shakespeare. You studied Langston Hughes. You studied Maya Angelou. Like still, you can still be your own. Like
Right, right. You can take
originality
pieces.
never. You can never beat originality. So like be you. End of the day, you can get pieces of other people, but your classroom is you. My classroom don't have to match yours. So I think that's what they're trying to like box a lot of teachers in to be the same. Well, you still gotta be you at the end of the day.
Yeah. I love that, man. So be yourself and be creative. Like I really liked what you were saying about especially teaching wise. Like who was it? Einstein said you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so sometimes kids might need to figure it out through a rap. Some kids might need to figure it out through hand to paper. Some kids might need to hear it through music or video or so I like that you try to keep the creativity involved and see what works for your kids in that class because some classes I'm not a teacher but I can imagine that each class each year each period is a little different than the other one and you gotta speed up the pace or slow down the
yeah, for
pace
sure.
or find your way and find your rhythm. So that's cool, man. I think that's really solid advice. Before we get off of here, do you want to let people know how to find you? I'll try to drop the links and everything into the description of the YouTube. But while we have everybody here, would you like to tell them how to find you and what's the best way to
Yeah,
get
the
in contact with you to book you and things of that nature?
website passthelight.com.
Pass the light.
Yeah, so we all light oriented around here. On social media, Kilowatt Poet.
Mm.
Uh, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Even Twitter did not die. Like Twitter's still going. Like as long
Yeah,
as Twitter's still on it.
Just like I thought Facebook died a couple years ago, and it's
came
still
back, right?
rolling.
Yeah. So Facebook a little different. You gotta look for Mr. Enlightenment on there. So I
Mm.
couldn't really incorporate the Kilowatt Poet as much in that. But Kilowatt Poet, if you go to pastorlight.com, you can find my other links. Uh, I'm also, we do a little work in the studio. So we done put poetry on Spotify. I got the spoken word albums, Spotify, Apple Music,
Yep.
Mr. Enlightenment. Just search me on there. Give me a few streams. We can't get rich off it, but a few
Yeah,
few
but
dollars
hey,
helps.
yeah, and the more exposure we can get, man, bring people in, man. The art is there. Trust me, I wouldn't have y'all know me. I wouldn't have nobody on here that I don't support and believe in. So that's what it's about. And like I said, this podcast is still new. It's still fresh. We hope that y'all subscribe, like, go find Kilowatt Poet, Mr. Enlightenment, my boy Joey. Go find him everywhere you can. Check him out. Keep supporting the cause. Um, it's all about growth. Think harder, work smarter, and if you want it to grow, just add water. The water pot.
I wake up every day like I don't wanna see the daylight. Like I wish it would just stay night. Like I wish you would've stayed right here, right here. And I don't hardly sleep now. That depression getting deep now. So lost I wish I'd be found. I know you're hurting deep down.